very inspiring. And now we have Javier Campos here with us. He is here in person, and we also have Oscar Collin. He's going to be here virtually. He is a leader in cybersecurity for the Americas from Siemens. And Javier Campos, he is an analyst of responses and incidents at the global search in Siemens, and they will be speaking about sustainable cybersecurity. Hi. Hello, is everything okay? Good morning. I only would like to validate that Oscar is connected. Is Oscar there? Okay, good. We will start. Thanks, Olga, for this introduction, for this presentation. Thanks to the organizing committee. Thanks to my friend Oscar. I see him in the screen. And thanks to you, the audience, public, those who are here in person in Tec de Monterrey, and those who are remotely. This is going to be a hybrid presentation. I will first be me speaking about the theory, and then at the end, in the middle, Oscar is going to take the floor. He's going to be speaking about how to apply what I will be saying, how to apply it in real life. So let's start with the presentation. Sustainable cybersecurity. Maybe many of you look at these two disciplines. Maybe you treat them as the same, and you may wonder what is the relationship. But don't worry, that was the same feeling that I had at the beginning. But at the end of the presentation, everything is going to make sense. Let's first start. Let's first define both disciplines. First, sustainability. What is sustainability? Sustainability is to meet our present, to satisfy our present without jeopardizing the future, and to ensure balance between economic growth, between taking care of our environment and the well-being of the society. Now, cybersecurity, in very simple terms, is the practice, the discipline in charge of protecting our systems, our networks, in general terms, our information assets against digital attacks. And this is for not to damage the systems, for not to damage the content of the systems. And here we have the first key point, to protect people. Why people? Well, we are going to see this later. Let's start with sustainability. Let's first speak about sustainability. In this slide, we can see objectives, which are 17 objectives. These are sustainable development objectives, so goals that were published by the United Nations 10 years ago, more or less. And these objectives speak about the environment, social aspects, and governance aspects. It includes the well-being of people, of individuals. It also includes well-being for communities, for the society. And here we can see those 17 goals. And to name only a few of those, to end poverty, to end hunger, health and well-being, clean water, etc. I really recommend you to go to United Nations link, where you see sustainable development, because apart from seeing the definitions of each one of these objectives, we're going to see actions we can take as individuals, as a community, and even as a society. And it is very, very interesting, because there are some objectives that can be met from our living room, depending on the level of effort we would like to invest. Then we will find actions that we can start doing. And if it is from our living room, then I can do a lot. And as you clearly see here in this slide, these objectives or goals are a shared responsibility. It is not only the United Nations or governments. It is rather each one of us as a community, as a society. Now, let's go back to cybersecurity. There is a well-known saying in cybersecurity that says there are two types of companies in the world. The first type of company is the one with a cybersecurity incident. This is the first type. And the second type, which one you think it is? Those who do not yet have a cybersecurity incident, but without knowing it, they are there in the line waiting for it to happen to them. So let's speak about one type of cyber attack with lots of impact. We're going to see the impact of companies, and then we will go to infinity and beyond. Who recognizes this screen? Who recognizes this screen? Here we have some hands raised. And there are many different ones, but this is one of the most famous ones. And for those who do not know it, let me tell you. This screen you see here is a rescue note of ransomware. What is ransomware? Ransomware is a cyber attack that compromises and implies several steps. Cyber criminals were able to infiltrate the network of a company. It is the victim, and this is the first point. And once they are inside, they start to move sidewise. They try to infect as many machines as possible. They look for critical assets, servers, databases, and file repositories. And once they find these types of devices or assets, they will take as much as they can and they will simply steal it, exfiltration of data. And once they stole data, they will cipher the files, the compromised files. And once all this happens, the victim comes, will turn the machine on, and will find a rescue note. What do we see in this rescue note? Well, the very first point is what happened to my computer? Well, all your important files are ciphered, your documents, your photographs, your videos, your databases, etc. cannot be accessed. Why? Because we cipher them. How can I recover them? Well, we can give you a key so that you can decipher those files, but you will need to pay this tiny amount of crypto coins. There is something we do not see here because this is old information, but the rescue notes, the most current rescue notes, say if you do not pay, first you will have 3, 4, 5 days to pay this amount. And after this time, and the price is going to be higher and higher. And if at the end you decide not to pay, then two things will happen. The first is that your data, you will lose your data. And the second thing is that all the data that I installed before showing this as a note is going to be public information. I want you to ask one question. I want you to ask one question. What the impact of this attack could be in a manufacturing company, in a technological company, in a technology company, in a factory that has industrial components. Let's speak some about some of these impacts. The first one that I already explained is that you will be losing data. Yes, I am a company. I am the victim of a ransomware. I will be losing assets and I will be subject to extortion. And as we saw in the note, if you do not pay, you will lose these files and I will make all your files public. What type of files? Many types of files. It can be intellectual property, it depends on the company. It can also be information about clients, personal data, etc. It depends on the business line of the company and the business relationships. There could be more extortion, but let's do not speak that. What else? Well, maybe an activity shut down. Imagine accounting department is affected. The accounting department, the servers, databases, and they will stop rendering the service and there are going to be activities at the office or an industrial plant. If the attack reaches that network, I will have an economic impact. If I pay the rescue ransom, if I decide to pay for that, it is going to be a very important amount that can be millions of dollars. It depends on the size of the company, and cyber criminals are going to be doing their jobs, and they will see the profitability of the victim company, and then based on this is how the ransom will be determined. Other economic impact is recovery cost if my production line collapses, if my accounting department collapses, if a service that I render to users collapses. Obviously, I will need to pay a cost to recuperate. What else? We could have impact to third people. For example, if I have data of customers, and if that is personal data, and if it is data that involves intellectual property, for example, then first, and depending on the standards and depending on the contractual relationships, I will need to tell my business partner or my client that maybe her information was compromised, and obviously it will damage our commercial relationships. If this becomes public, even if it is not public, then my company will be subject to a reputational damage because it was a victim of this type of cyber crime, cyber incident. We also have the potential damage to the supply chain. For example, if I am a company manufacturing a component for a final product, and if I have to stop my operations, and if I have economic impact, obviously the chain is going to suffer. The supply chain is going to be affected. And there are other impacts that will not be seen, and it depends on the what the company does, the business line of the company, the data, the country, and there are many variables.
¿Qué impacto creen ustedes, volviendo a los objetivos de la ONU,
What impact?
qué impacto
Going
creen
back to the goals of the United Nations, what is the impact of ransomware in meals, in food? Who believes it could affect health, meals, the food, the well-being of a city?
Vamos a ver un ejemplo muy rápidamente.
Let's see an
Hace
example
unos años se entendió
very
una
quickly.
pandemia ahí por 2020,
Some years ago during the
2022,
pandemic in
un
21 or in
ransomware
22, there was a ransomware attack to
¿Cómo
the
fue?
island health services.
En primer lugar,
How did it
afectó las
happen?
redes de los
First,
sistemas hospitalarios
50
por
hospital
un ataque
networks
por
were
una
affected. It
pandemia
was an attack during the
antes
pandemic.
de cerrar y de dejar inoperables los hospitales, se robaron más de 70 gigas de
More
datos
than 70 gigas of
y
data,
los datos seguramente eran
and data
datos médicos, ¿no?
were medical
Entonces,
data of patients.
hubo un impacto monetario
There was a
de,
monetary
bueno,
impact
está evaluado hasta en 100 millones
up
de
to
euros
100
que
million euros.
costó pues, al pueblo irlandés.
And this is what the
Se
Irish people had
tardaron
to pay.
aproximadamente 4 meses
It
en
took 4 months
recuperarse
to recover.
y aquí tenemos ya un
And
impacto
here we
en
have an
salud
impact
universal
on health and
porque
well-being.
fueron 20
Why?
millones de
Because there was an
hospitales.
impact in the hospital
Imagínense los
services.
hospitales
Imagine
no en
50
condición
hospitals
de
and the information
regresar
system,
a hacer citas
and they had to make appointments, and they had to work in
Entonces,
paper and with
impacto
pencils.
a esa
So
escala
this type of attack,
de 50 hospitales en un
50
país
hospitals in a
pequeño,
relatively small country,
conocido el
what would
alcance
be
que
the
tienen las
scope
personas.
to the scope, the impact to the health of people?
Pero
But
este no es el único ejemplo.
this is not the only
Hay
one example.
ransomware
No, we have
que
seen
ha afectado
ransomware
cadenas de
that has
suministro
affected
de alimentos.
supply chains of
Empecemos
food.
por el hambre, ¿no? De la cuestión del hambre.
Um,
Tenemos el malware Black
we
Energy
have a
que
malware,
se
Black
utilizó
Energy,
para atacar la infraestructura eléctrica de Ucrania.
to
Se
attack
utilizó
the
para
Ukraine
atacar la
electricity
infraestructura,
network,
se utilizó para atacar la infraestructura
to
aeroportuaria
attack
y
airport
tuvimos
infrastructure.
impactos también en otros objetivos. Y pues un tema bastante famoso
And
fue el
something
malware
very well
Stuxnet,
known was the
que
malware Stuxnet.
este fue un malware altamente
This
sofisticado
was a highly
cuyo objetivo
sophisticated
era
malware
modificar el comportamiento de las
to
empresas
modify the
eléctricas
performance of industrial components
en plantas
in plants,
en plantas del sistema de defensa
in
nuclear de
plants
Irán.
of the nuclear system
Entonces,
of Iran.
imagínense un
Iran,
malware como este para
imagine a malware with industrial components that has to do with nuclear energy and with nuclear weapons. What would be the potential impact it could have? Great scale impact on health of people and even on a complete communities or world peace.
Dicho esto,
Um,
vamos a
Now we're going to speak about
pequeños datos duros
some
basados
hard
en
data focused on
Entonces
manufacturing
tenemos
threats
aquí
or
que
threats
el
against manufacturing
70%
or OT. And we see that
mundiales
61%
han
of
implementado un incidente de
digital companies
ciberseguridad.
have had a cybersecurity incident.
83%
33%
de los
of
emprendimientos de
cyber
manufactura
incidents happen
y
to manufacturing, and 72%
82% de
of ransomware
ransomware
attacks, which is
pues
precisely
ocurren
what
en
we
este sector.
spoke about,
También
happens in this
hablando
sector.
de
And now,
arquitecturas
speaking about
en
IT
2022,
architecture
el
in 2022,
83% de estas
53%
arquitecturas
of this IT
tenían una conexión
architecture
externa
had an
de
external connection
componentes de red.
to OT
Entonces
components.
aquí
And so
hay un
here
riesgo
there
latente
is a
porque,
latent risk.
porque si
Why?
bien
Because
es la naturaleza de
if
las
nature, if nature of
infraestructuras TIC
infrastructure, IT
es tener
infrastructure,
conexiones
is to
únicas
have
a Internet,
connections
tal vez
exposed
no
to the
sea
internet,
posible para todas las
then
redes.
it may not happen to every network.
Ahora,
Now,
habiendo hablado de los
Now, speaking
objetivos y
about the
los actos
objectives of the
y
impact,
el
and
efecto de la
speaking
inteligencia
about
amenaza,
the threat, the
¿cuál
environment
es
of
nuestra
threats,
recomendación?
what is
No
our
para
recommendation?
prepararnos,
To get
para
prepared,
detectar y
to
para
detect, and
responder
to
a
respond
estas
to
amenazas
these
tecnológicas.
daily threats.
Bueno, la primera
The first
es tener un approach de
is to
protección
have a
integral o
multi-layer
SIEM.
protection approach.
Nosotros tenemos aquí en el centro de la figura nuestra
Right at the
planta, nuestro
center,
servicio,
we have our plant,
¿sí?
our services,
Y
our office,
todos somos
and
conscientes
we
de
are
que
all
hay
aware of the
amenazas
fact
de
that there are
seguridad
cybersecurity,
latentes.
latent
¿Cómo podemos empezar?
cybersecurity threats.
Pues
How can we start?
nuestra primera capa,
Our first layer
protegiendo los
is by
activos en sí.
protecting
¿Qué puedo
assets.
hacer aquí?
What can I do
Puedo
here?
hacer hardening de los sistemas, puedo tener un programa de gestión de tráfico,
System
de
hardening,
vulnerabilidades,
patch
etcétera,
system
y protección de
vulnerabilities, and
mecanismos
I
de
can also
autenticación
have
y acceso.
authentication and
¿Qué significa
access
esto?
protection
Pues
mechanisms.
necesito
What
tener
does it mean? It is as simple
unos
as having
usuarios
my
y
user
solo los usuarios
management and only users who need to have access to an
acceso
asset
y
will have
autenticación.
that access, and
Y
those who
vamos
do
a
not
la
need it will
seguridad
not have
exterior, podemos
access to
ver
it.
la seguridad
And
de la
here we
red.
can see
¿Cómo
security of
puedo
the network.
proteger mi
How
red?
can I protect
Primer
my
punto,
network? Well, the
segmentándola,
very first point is by
objetivo,
segmenting it. What is the
características y
aim? It
gestión,
is going to be better management, of course. But
sistemas
if
de información.
if I have an impact
No
in
querría,
a content
no quiero que se
network,
afecte
I don't
toda
want this
esta
to affect
infraestructura.
my whole
¿Qué más?
company.
Usando
What else? Using
firewalls,
perimetral
VPS,
protection firewalls,
VPNs para
VPNs,
acceso remoto
IDSs, remote
o
access,
Zero Trust,
or
que
cyber
es un
trust
aspecto tal
architecture
vez mucho más
that will be making
estratégico.
security much more robust.
Y por último, la capa exterior,
And the external layer,
la
last but
seguridad
not least,
física, ¿no? De
the
mi
physical
planta,
security
de
of
mi
my
oficina,
plant, of my office, and
podemos ver
obviously
aquí en
we can
línea,
see this
tengo
every
cerraduras
day. I have my
de
plant, my
seguro,
office, I have a safe
tengo
perimeter, I
rejas,
have my
rejas con
doors,
marcos.
everything.
Tengo mi política
And
de
then I
seguridad,
have my
por
security
ejemplo,
policies. For
solo los
example,
empleados
only
responsables
employees that
podrán acceder a
identify
la
as
planta,
such will
no
have
todos los
access to the plant.
empleados van a
Not
tener
all
acceso a todos los
employees will have
lugares.
access to every place.
Para visitantes deben
For visitors,
registrarse,
they will need
deben
to
dar
get
identificación,
registered, they will need to
podemos
leave an
hacerlo.
ID. These are the things we see
Y
every day.
monitoreo de seguridad,
And
pues mis
security
cámaras de
monitoring,
seguridad, mis
my
sensores,
security
mi
cameras, my
vigilancia,
sensors, my
y
surveillance
pues
staff,
habiendo
etc.
descubierto
And
estas
once
capas, pues podemos empezar a
we
hablar
work with
de
these three layers, we
protección
can then speak about a
perimetral y
protection that
perimetral.
would allow me to have an active,
¿Cuál es el siguiente
ongoing
paso?
service. What will be the next step?
Este diagrama que ven
This
aquí
diagram
se
you
lo
see here,
resumo
it
pero
looks
gráficamente.
complex, but let's go
¿Cómo puedo empezar a armar el
part
puzzle?
step by step. How can I
Con
make
una
my
estrategia de
puzzle
seguridad.
so that I can have a
Lo
robust
primero
cybersecurity
que ven
strategy?
aquí
Well, the first thing
este
that I would
diagrama
like to say
está,
is that
está basado
this
en el marco
diagram
de
is
seguridad
based
NIST
on the NIST
27001
cybersecurity
y
framework that
instrucciones
is
donde
indicating
trabaja.
5 functions we can
Identificar,
see down there
proteger,
to identify,
vigilar,
to
sostener
protect,
y
to
recuperar.
detect, to respond, and to recuperate.
Como
Based on this, we will speak about 6 stages. We will present 6 stages so that we can attack and go after or tackle all this. How do I start? First stage. First, I will define what will be my cybersecurity strategy and which are going to be my policies, because this is what we mean by governance. And then I will ask the philosophical question, which is, where am I and where do I want to be? How can I start responding these questions? By using questionnaires, maturity models. I can also use management systems. In the 7000, I can also work with OT standards, and in this case, it could be the 62 403. And there you can see some yellow dots after some stages. What does it mean? That after I complete all these steps, well, the ideal situation is to have education and awareness sessions and even simulations, so that what we have learned in each stage is going to be well established and then communicated. And then what happens in stage two? In stage two, I will start the identification of assets. I will start seeing which are those, where are they, who is responsible, and something very, very important, which are my critical assets. And once I know my assets, I would need to know what is the disadvantage. I need to make a vulnerability analysis. I can do it through a manager, vulnerability manager, open testing, or even campaigns. And once this is identified, there is a separation. Let's go to the upper part. I will be protecting my network, segmenting it, as we saw in the previous slide. I will implement access controls. We saw it in the previous slide. And in case a remote access is needed, to implement a safe VPN remote access. Safe and jumping hosts. And once my vulnerabilities are evaluated, I need to have a management program. What does it imply? I need to know which are the assets with which vulnerabilities and which of those are the most critical vulnerabilities, and what am I going to be doing with it, which new vulnerabilities emerge that could affect my current assets or the future ones, the ones I am planning to buy. What else? I will then get ready for stage 5 of a cyber incident or a catastrophe, and or starting a restoration and a security copy process. And in the case of OT cases, I will be hardening the network and the components, and it implies to use patches and the hardening, and to have a protection against malware, etc. Now let's go to stage number 4, protection. And here I need to have processes, people, and technology that would allow me to detect all those threats, which are latent, which are out there alive. I will need to detect and to respond to them. And here we have detection systems. Here we have incident response systems, and then this stage can be nourished obviously by my process of vulnerability management. It can be nourished by other disciplines such as cyber intelligence, and it can even be nourished, and it should be nourished by previous iterations of this process. Now let's go to stage number 5, which is what would happen if a cyber attack comes here. I should have continuity business plan in case there is an impact, then my business will not stop, and try to reduce that impact, the monetary reputational impact, and to have a recovery plan in which I will be ready. Speaking about security copies, and none of this would be good if I do not have a continued improvement stations. Once you go through all these stages and processes, you need to take your lessons learned, what worked well, what can I improve, what didn't work, and to use it as an input for other iteration. And then I will start with the strategy and assessment of cybersecurity. Good.
Pues vamos a empezar a
Now we are
profundizar
going to go to the
y
next
hoy
slide.
nos va
And
a Oscar
now Oscar
sobre la
is
aplicación
going
de
to be
los
speaking about the
conceptos
application of all these
de los
concepts in real
algoritmos
life. Oscar.
del COVID.
You have the floor
Listo,
over,
¿pueden
Oscar.
escuchar?
Can you hear me?
Sí. Perfecto. Gracias, amigo. Pues bueno,
Perfect.
antes que nada, gracias, Javier, por todo lo que has
Thanks,
hecho y nos has estado
Javier,
platicando.
for
Y
all what
muchísimas
we have
gracias a
said,
la
and
South
thanks
School,
so much
obviamente,
to
por
the
todo
South School
por la
on
invitación.
Internet
Estoy
Governance for
súper
this
agradecido por no
invitation.
poder estar ahí con ustedes en la
I am
presentación
ashamed
que
of.
acaban de dar,
It's a
pero
shame that I
estamos en
cannot be
Estados
there,
Unidos y
but I
muy
am now in the
puntualmente
United
les
States,
pido ciberseguridad
doing some
y inteligencia
cybersecurity and
artificial y
AI
muy
topics,
seguramente
and
les
surely
quiero ahí pronto
I will
platicar
soon
algunos
share
aspectos.
this information with
Y
you.
muy bien, ya nos hemos dado Javi de un poquito de dándonos la entrada a lo que es este mundo
Javi
de
spoke
la
about the
ciberseguridad,
world of cybersecurity,
sobre cómo
sustainable
los efectos van a
cybersecurity,
afectar a la industria
how the
manufacturera,
industry is
ciertos
affected, the
operadores
manufacturing
que se
industry,
encuentran en industrias
operators,
esenciales y
it's
que nos
those who move
veremos
in
a través de
critical
esta
and in essential
presentación. Pero
infrastructures.
pues imagínense de casi minuta toda una
But
operación
imagine
a
having a
nivel
power
global
outage or
y
to have
internacional. Estos son finalmente los
water
retos que nos
pollution. These are
debemos
the
estar
big
enfrentando
problems we could
hoy en
be
día.
facing today.
Y sé que muchos de ustedes, como un
And I
servidor,
know that
Javi,
many of
pues
you,
venimos de pronto
like Javi,
de las áreas de
we
IT
come from
y
IT
decimos,
areas and we say,
¿qué tiene que ver todo
what is
esto,
the relationship
Javier, con
between all
nosotros?
this
Pues esa es otra
and us?
responsabilidad.
Maybe this
Pues
is
muy
another
claro que sí, porque es
responsibility.
una
And I would
responsabilidad
like to tell you
compartida,
that it is a shared
porque hoy en día
responsibility
cada vez
because
lo
today,
vemos
even more and
toda la
more,
parte
we
IT
see
está
ITs
correlada
and
con
those who are
la
in
parte
governance as
operativa.
well,
Bien,
and the
ya tienen todo
operations
el
side,
contexto
those who have all
indispensable
this
para
expertise, those who know
seguir
how to apply
estando
certain
conscientes
standards,
consumidores,
those who know
conocer
how
las
to do
herramientas que
certain
utilizar
controls,
para
and if they
desplegar la
know the tools to
ciberseguridad.
be
No
used
solo es la
to
parte
deploy
civil que
cybersecurity.
tenemos
It is not
por
IT
encima de nosotros, sino ya más
what
en la
is above
parte
us, but
operativa.
the operational
Entonces,
aspect of
aquí
it.
vemos y
So
estamos
here
viendo
we are,
pequeños
and we see
ejemplos
some
de cómo es
small
cómo se hace,
examples
por
of
ejemplo, en un ambiente
how it
eléctrico,
happens
donde
in
cada
an
uno de estos
electric
componentes operativos
environment
en
where
la
more
parte de operación
components and
están siendo
assets in
automatizados,
operations are
están
being
conectando con
automated. They are
información
connecting.
directamente,
They are
tienen que
directly
hacer una
connected to the
actualización y
cloud.
hoy en
An
día
update is
temas
needed,
como el
and
Internet de las
today
cosas
topics
o
such
el
as
Internet
bring
de las
your own
cosas
device or
con
the
la
Internet of
evolución
Things
que está haciendo
or
para todos nuestros
digitalization for
dispositivos
all these devices,
implica un área
it
de ataque
implies an area of
mucho mayor,
attack. It implies a
sobre
bigger
todo si lo
area of
estamos
attack,
haciendo
even more
estas
when we do these
automatizaciones o implementaciones
automations or
en red.
implementations.
Existen múltiples
There are
proveedores,
multiple
es
vendors, it is multi-generational, it is
inclusive
multi-technology.
dispositivos que vamos
And what
a
about
hacer en
those
soluciones de legacy.
legacy
Que
equipment
aún
or
viven en sus
solutions?
procesos
Equipment pieces
trabajando
that
a
still
full,
live in
pero
these
que tienen
processes.
sistemas
They work
operativos
at
con una
fullest, but
alta
with highly
vulnerabilidad
vulnerable
y no pueden
operational
ser
systems,
actualizados
operating systems,
por
and
el
they cannot be
simple o
updated
porque tengamos
simply
malas
because
actualizaciones.
how they are being managed
Entonces, si lo vemos un
and how they
poquito,
work.
todo este
So
tipo
if
de
we look at
conexiones
it
en donde
here,
tenemos
it
centros
is
de
a type
control,
of
tenemos
connections where we have
redes
control
que son
centers, where we have
directamente
non-reliable networks.
interconectadas
Let's
y
just
cómo
directly speak about
constantemente estamos
internet and how we
tener acceso
constantly
remoto
want to have
edge.
a remote
Como ahorita
access to them. This is what we learned from
podemos
COVID.
tener acceso a
We could have
absolutamente
access
todos estos
to all
dispositivos
these
desde
devices
nuestra
from
consola
our
de
home,
oficina.
not only at the
Los
office,
que tuvimos la oportunidad de
those
hacer
who had
home
the
office
opportunity
y
to
nos
do
tocó
home
ver cómo
office, but
operaban
also
y llevar
in
todos los
management
procesos.
to manage all our
Entonces,
processes
vemos
in operational
una
terms.
máquina
So we see
completa
plants,
tratando de
complete
conectarse a
plants
Internet
trying to connect
y
to
vemos
internet,
todas
and
las
the best way
circunstancias
to
en
do
donde
it
esta
is by
zona
creating these
demilitarizada
well-known
en donde ya una
demilitarized
información
zones where
segura
we
que
will have a
incluye
safe
también
zone
información
where we
a
can
través
exchange
de Internet
information through
en nuestras
internet
plantas
and
operativas.
our
Porque estos
operational plans.
dispositivos no
Why?
necesitan estar
Because these devices do not
constantemente
need to
conectados a
constantly
Internet.
be connected to internet.
Ellos
They do
tienen
not
su
need to
propio
constantly be
procesamiento
connected to
en un
internet,
sistema
but
que
they
ellos
need to
proveen y un
be
acceso
given a
seguro
safe
a ellos
access
mismos,
to
lo
it.
cual es muy
And it is
importante
something
hoy en
very,
día.
very important
Podemos pasar a
nowadays.
a
Can
la
we now go
siguiente
to the next
slide, por favor.
one, please? Can we please go to the next one, please? Let's speak about some reference cases, some cases that we have implemented, and due to confidentiality reasons of our clients, we cannot speak about some of them. So those who have allowed for this are the ones we are presenting. But trust me, we've been working a lot with the Mexican government, we've been working with the Argentinian government, we have spoken to many transnational companies in Brazil, and we have done many of these solutions for these critical industries around the world. And some of them Quebec. It chose the company to modernize and not only protection systems but control over substations. And it is telling you the importance of supply, electricity supply. This is very important and it is becoming a critical industry today. And for sustainability, it is more than logic. It is a focal, a target industry where we do not only speak about the security of the product and the operational security of every solution. And what matters the most is to know what is the expertise available in order to produce and to bring cybersecurity to these substations with certified blueprints for this type of process. Not only with a certification, because many of you will have in your mind and the 27001, but also other certifications that speak about the things that are possible in the operational market downstream. This is how we call it in automation. And these are standards such as IS 62443. It helps us homologate not only products but processes. And um, integrators of systems and to verify products have the necessary cybersecurity. We can be with all these clients to develop, we can be with them to develop since the beginning a complete solution for cybersecurity, to take it, to implement it, and at the end, and to maintaining this operation because it will be useless to implement cybersecurity solutions in these spaces if we will not be able to optimize, if we cannot maintain and optimize these processes. Today, this could be the best solution. And the portfolio of every vendor. But tomorrow, if there is vulnerability, if there are other problems we were not used to, and then the market change immediately, and if I do not maintain and optimize these operations, then I will have the same vulnerabilities that I had yesterday. So awareness to have updated and constant operations is very, very important. The next one, please, Javi. Another big client for us in the United Nations. It is a utility. It is speaking about electricity. There were some challenges, very important challenges, complying with some standards that are being used in Europe. It is not only Europe, but also things being done in the Latin American market and the United States. So to me, the first point, the starting point when we speak about cybersecurity is to get to know each other. There's no better way to do it uh, but an assessment that tells us where we are standing and where we go to. If you remember what Javier said in this roadmap cybersecurity, it was that to know where we are standing after governance and after policies, we need to know where we are and where we go to. And this is what we can do with an assessment, but not every type of assessment. We know today that there are many companies that help us know where we are standing. 27,001 and risk-based analysis 27,005. But that is not enough.
Dar ese plus y ese brillo
We need
hacia el
to
mercado local.
go to
Y
the
es ahí
OT
donde
market.
compañías como Siemens
And
pueden
this
tener
is
valor
where
agregado,
companies such
porque
as
podemos
Siemens
dar
offer
desde
value
todos los
added
dispositivos
because we
que
can
se
have
tienen
the
en la parte de
transparency
dentro,
of all the
pero
devices.
también de todos
But
aquellos softwares y
but
dispositivos que tenemos
those
en la parte
softwares
de
and
adentro.
devices we have
No basta prevenir
operationally.
con solo conocer la vulnerabilidad que
It is
pueda
not
tener
enough
mi
to
Windows, un
know the
sistema
vulnerability
operativo
of my Windows and my
Linux, o si estoy
operating
dando
system in
aplicaciones
Linux,
en Apache o un
or if
dispositivo
I am
móvil
using
o
Apache
computadora.
or a mobile device or
Y
an industrial computer.
esos dispositivos también tienen software y
Those
tienen software
devices also
operativo
have
y
a
manejan
devices operating device,
equipo que
and
es
they
de alta
work with highly
tecnología
available
crítico para
equipment,
estas industrias
critical
para
equipment for these
continuar funcionando,
industries,
como lo son los
and
PLCs, como las
such as
son las
PLCs,
interfaces
such
sobre
as the
máquina o
interfaces,
como lo son
man-machine interfaces,
casi
or
una
as
válvula
simple
que
as a
pudiera
valve
ayudarnos a
that
cerrar el
could help us
suministro de gas
close
alimentando
the
nuestros
gas
equipos.
supply to
Entonces, estos
avoid an
Security
explosion.
Assessments o
So all the
Cybersecurity Assessments
cybersecurity
hoy vienen a
assessments
evolucionar, no
today have
solamente hablan de
evolved,
la
and
parte
they do not
de
only
vídeo,
speak about
sino nos
IT,
hablan ya también de la parte
but
operativa y
there
los
is also the
dispositivos.
operational aspect and
Y
those
digo, no me quiero
devices.
dejar mentir,
And Javier will
como
not let me
researcher o
lie.
como
As a
instructor,
teacher,
Cybersecurity Expert Course,
our
se queda constantemente
response team
buscando mejoría no solo
constantly
del
look at the
dispositivo de IT, sino del
vulnerabilities, not only
dispositivo
IT
que
devices,
tenemos en la
but
parte
the
operativa
devices we
y
have
de
in
los cuales somos
operational
incluso
terms, and we
proveedores.
are even vendors
Pasamos a la siguiente
of
imagen, por
that.
favor.
Can we please go to the next one, please?
Eh, Esto no es algo que solo
This is
Siemens esté diciendo, todos
nothing that
conocemos
only
defensa
Siemens
dos
says.
mundos
Deep
evolucionan
defense
y
and the
esta
evolution.
convergencia IT
And
y
to do
OT.
the IT and
Creo que
OT
solamente la
convergence,
compañía
this is
mexicana, si no
something that
son
not only our
no
company does,
solamente
it is a
compañías
consortium
innovadas
of
de
global
forma
companies
presencial, porque hoy lo tenemos
that
en
created
Internet
this
ustedes
trust.
y
You
compañías
can Google it
tecnológicas
and you can see
operativas, compañías
operational
de IT,
companies,
compañías
IT
bancarias,
companies, banking,
financieras,
financial
de
companies, retail companies,
certificación, ¿vale? Uno aprovecha
certification
también por la parte
known
de
by
ciberseguridad
cybersecurity in
que
IT,
están creando o se están uniendo para
and
poder
they
dar una solución
are working together in order
completa y
to offer
holística
a complete and
hacia quienes
holistic
allá afuera
solution
necesitan ciberprotegerse.
to those who need to be
Como tres
cyber
principales
protected.
pilares tienen el proteger la información
The main
de la
pillars
compañía y de las personas,
is to protect the information of the
prevenir la
company and of
contactación de esas
people, to
personas y
prevent
a los
damage of
procesos o a la
those people
infraestructura
and
como
the
ya lo
processes and
hablamos
the
de importancia
infrastructure.
que es importante es
We spoke about
proteger
how
estos procesos
important it
porque
is to
podemos afectar
protect these
los
processes because
acuerdos
we can
globales en
affect
cuestiones de
global
sostenibilidad
agreements, speaking about
y sobre todo
sustainability,
establecer esta base común
and to
de nuestra
establish this
cultura de
culture of
ciberseguridad sobre el
cybersecurity.
cual podemos
And
basar el futuro digital.
this is the base for the
Vamos a
digital world.
poder crecer, vamos a poder
We
hacer
will be
todo
able to
mejor,
grow,
con
to
más
do
calidad,
everything much better,
vivir en un mundo digital mucho más seguro
live in a safer
si creamos
digital
este
world
tipo de culturas.
if we create this type of culture.
La siguiente, Javi, por favor. Bueno, eso es uno de los puntos más importantes.
This is one of the most important points.
Y ahora solo para complementar el tema de la importancia de los ataques, esto es un
Now,
poquito lo
speaking
que
about the
vivimos
importance of
día a
attacks,
día
and this is what
dentro de
we
las
face
compañías.
every day in the companies.
Pese a tener más de, no
Despite
somos,
of the fact that
creo, un por ciento
we are
protegidos,
not
ninguna compañía
100%
lo es,
protected,
tampoco,
no
¿eh?
company
Porque sí
is.
conozco de compañías, las que
We have two
fueron
types of
atacadas,
companies,
pero
those
están
that were
protegidos
attacked
porque
and those who are
históricamente
yet
una
to be
moneda
attacked, and
de
those who
muchos
haven't
años.
seen. They are
Porque
being
tener
attacked.
muchos años
They
con
have
Siemens,
more than
más de
450
150 fábricas
offices, more than
alrededor del mundo.
150 factories,
Manejamos alrededor de 4 a 6 millones de eventos
from 4 to 6
por
million
día,
events per day,
1000 incidentes al mes y más de 100,000 intentos de ataque
and more than
dentro de la compañía.
100,000 attempts of
Lo
attack in the
importante
company.
es ver que pese a todo eso,
But what
no
matters the
hemos
most is that
perdido
despite of all
dinero
that, we are
ni
not
hemos
losing
tenido un
money,
daño
and we
reputacional
haven't had a
causado
reputational
por
damage
este tipo de problemáticas. Y
caused
es
by
ahí
this
donde
type
les
of
decimos,
problem. And this is when
basándonos
we
en su
tell you
experiencia,
and that after all these years of
pueden
experience,
acercarse a nosotros para
you
que
can
podamos
approach
hacer
us so
la
that we can
ciberdefensa,
do
no
cyber
solo de la
defense,
parte de
not
IT,
only of IT.
sabemos que ya son expertos en ello, ya lo están
We
haciendo
know they are
actualmente,
experts, they
sino que
currently
les
do it,
ayudamos a
but we also
complementar y
help them
llevar todo
complement
eso al
and to
campo
take all
operativo.
that to the operational
Pasamos a la
side.
siguiente, Gaby, por favor.
The next one, please. There are many legislations, and I've been told, Oscar, at least in Mexico, we do not have a cybersecurity law. That's good because we do not have to be aligned to something like this. But yes and no, there is no law as such forcing us, and this is good for companies. But the problem is that if we do not apply all this, then we're going to be attacked. And if I say yes and no because there are different types of companies, thanks that Mexico, the Americas, and the whole continent, we are countries open to the world. We are not exempt from from complying with the different standards in Mexico. If there is no cybersecurity law, we're trying to absorb all of them because speaking about power supply, then most of the companies will be asking for certifications such as Nexim for regulations. It is located in the United States, but our clients also receive assets from us, and we need to comply with all these standards. We are countries that manufacture, countries that produce automobiles, for example, and standards European, such as NIS2 and this is. They are focusing on European companies and other companies frameworks standards that can be applied, and they are trying to adopt them. So it is the time to act, to try to find a way, to adjust all these standards and to be ready for the future. Because the time will come, and I wouldn't like to see you running, trying to implement standards, some control points of cybersecurity. So let's try to find one person that has all the relevant talents in cybersecurity. So let's try to recruit. It is like trying to recruit a unicorn. We need to have multidiscipline teams that will understand the regulations, but they will also understand the processes, and they will understand how the IT and OT settings work and how they converge. So I am not saying it is the biggest team, but it should be the most diverse and the one focused on producing this type of solutions. The next one, please. As I already said, we preach with an example, not only in our offices but in our plants. It is tailor-made to it because we produce every type of component and they produce every type of solution, all the way from sensors, actuators, valves, all the very easy things, even the cloud settings or environments. We're doing something there to protect them, and there's nothing else like sharing our own medicine. As I already told you, the number of incidents we have, and despite of that, we haven't suffered reputational damage or money losses because of this type of incident. So why don't we share this medicine with all of you and with the world? The next one, please. This is a short video uh, to show how could happen in a production plant, what could happen in a water treatment plant, what could happen in a transmission distribution of energy system. These are some of the very critical ones. And we have the supply chains have been affected. In the case of food, and how difficult, how problematic, and how big the impact could be. It could be devastating in some cases. Imagine, as we said, to have a water pollution, to have a power outage in the case of people and cities. And this is something we should not allow ourselves to face in places where there are biochemical processes, nuclear plants, and where diseases are being controlled. This type of situation could happen. And what matters the most is that everything starts with us. The protection of our data, the protection of our processes. The next one, please. Many times we're told about the return of on investment of all this. Cybersecurity is not measured by its income. It is measured by what I just told you about the losses we can prevent. We could give a value to our data. Can we give a value to our life? Can we value processes? Can we give a value to pollution? Uh, to all the problems, water supply for the whole city. Me, personally, I believe it is not possible, and this is why return on investment and for implementing something like this, I believe it is too much. Next, let's go to the next one, please. And to conclude, uh, I would like to share this with you, and maybe Javi, you will have a final point to say, but in my case, I believe what matters the most is not to create sustainable and cyber secure companies, but to have people so that processes, industries, and products, the softwares these people will create will have these values. Thinking about them. This is what I wanted to share with you. Thanks so much for your time. Javi, I do not know if you have comments. Well, to end, and taking what you just said as a reference, we need to be people, cyber secure people. And I would like to express the following. We can compare, we as individuals, when we go out to the street, we try to protect our security. We do not go into dangerous areas, we do not go into dark spaces. We try to protect our security, we try to protect our belongings. So I believe the best thing we can all do is to have that same level of awareness when we are in internet. In internet, there are dangerous zones, there are dark aisles. There are many things that can go against our patrimony, and they can even go against our health. So let's be cyber safe, and the mindset we have to get protected. Let's do it in the cyber context, in the cyberspace. This is it, and we will now start our Q&A session. Let's give them a round of applause. Oscar and Javier, thanks so much. Thanks so much for your presentation. I have several questions. Tell us where you are from. Good morning, everyone. Thanks. It is a very interesting topic. I am an expert in development and security practices for the software development. And I have two questions. I am Diana Marinque from Colombia. I want to ask you if you have ever considered, you know, that today artificial intelligence is ruling everything. Have you considered to produce artificial intelligence to complement the traditional threat model, and because of the real-time moments and threats, to anticipate attacks and to detect abnormalities faster? And the second one is how you speak about the legacy systems, and those systems were designed without thinking in terms of security. You know this, so how are you planning to include cybersecurity in these OT modern infrastructures? Javi, do you answer and I complement. I will answer the question about artificial intelligence. Look here. The answer is yes, it is possible to use artificial intelligence, and it is a story. It is a story both the good of the for the good side and for the bad side. AI is can be reached by anyone. Criminals have used it, and obviously we cannot be left behind in this competition. In our case, we have machine learning for detection motors. How does it help? Out of the billions of alerts we get, obviously, it would be impossible for human beings to sit each one of those. So it is through machine learning models and AI you can get rid of false positives and to leave to analysts more logical numbers so that they can review. And according to my experience, always at the end of an automation chain with artificial intelligence, we need to have human criteria. In my case, how to respond to incidents, and even if we get five alerts, and if we are being told those are critical, we will make our own analysis, our own experience to determine if it is the case and to take the necessary actions. And now you have the floor over, Oscar.
Muchas gracias, Javier.
Thanks,
Y
Javier.
complementando nada
I
más
only would like to
esa
complement
parte,
what you just said.
puede ser nuestro mejor aliado
It can be
o
our
puede ser
best
nuestro peor
ally and
enemigo.
it could also be our worst enemy.
Y saber
Artificial intelligence, we only need to know
aplicar
how
ese
to apply
conocimiento, cómo
this
vamos a
knowledge
implementar
and
esos
how we're going to
conocimientos.
be
Entonces,
fitting
sí
these tools.
considero que es
And
un
speaking
reto,
about the
es algo que
legacy
nos
teams, this
encontramos a
is a good
diario.
question because
Imagínate,
this is
hasta
something we see
en
every
Siemens.
day, even
Pues
in the
están
Siemens
implementando
plants.
todo este
And this is
conocimiento
why the
para
concept
aplicaciones
presented by
de
Javier is so
defensa
important
profunda.
to
Estando
have a deep defense,
antes de
to
estos
start to
dispositivos,
try to do the
pues
hardening
tratar
of those devices,
que los
to try
dispositivos
to
tengan
see
el
that
correcto
devices will
pateo,
have
que
the
tengan
correct patching,
retorno de
they
datos,
will have the
etcétera, y que
correct
los certificados y
users
los
and
de
encryption
comunicación sean
certificates
correctos.
of
Muchas
communication
veces
should be the
los
correct
equipos
ones.
necesitan
Many times in the
hacer
case of the legacy teams, we are
reconocimientos
not
con
allowed to
esa
do that. But what we
ciberseguridad
do with that
profunda
deep
es hacer que esos
cybersecurity,
equipos puedan
we want
seguir
those
manteniendo la
teams
operación
to
o puedan
continue
seguir
with the
estando
operation and
sin hacer
the
importar
equipment pieces
el
to be
número
operational because
que
this
están
is
siendo
what matters the most
piezas
in OT,
seguras,
but having
donde
them in
existen
safe
los firewalls que
islands
incluyen
where
detection
there is
system o
firewalls,
incluyen
intrusion
prevention
detection
system
system,
o deep packaging
and deep packaging
que
inspection,
podemos proteger
things we
y en el
can
momento
protect.
en que
And
haya
as soon as there
una
is a
posible
warning
vulnerabilidad o una
about a
alerta,
possible
la comunicación es
vulnerability or
cortada,
an
el
alert,
equipo deja de
communications will be
funcionar y
interrupted, but
hasta
the
que no se
team
hagan
and
los pasos
equipment
para
will
que se
be
distribuya
operational. And
el
then till
sitio
our
a donde
inside
dispositivo o
crew
solución
members
informática pues la
see the false
comunicación hacia el
positive
mundo virtual,
case
internet
and a
sistemas
possible
operativos
threat,
no sean
and the
accesibles.
communication will not be reestablished till we have an
Sí,
answer, but the
sí
device will
y
keep
seguir los
working.
protocolos.
And
Lo que dicen desde la parte operativa es
as
seguir aplicando. Creo
this
que
is
no
what
sé
we
si
still
eso contesta un
sell.
poquito
So I
la
do not
pregunta.
know if this is a way to answer your question. Do we have more questions? Good morning, I'm Victor Merchant from the United Nations Office Against Drug and Crime. I have a not technical question. What is the policy, the perspective that this type of companies have, big companies like yours, with your scope about the payment of ransomware and the examples you were presenting, and speaking about cyber incidents in general terms, the publication and the exchange of experiences with other companies so that others do not suffer similar attacks. And of course, this will help sustainability and to maintain operations in this type of company.
¿Quieres Javi o...?
Eh, yo puedo dar mi opinión
I can give my
sobre
opinion about
ransomware para empezar.
ransomware, ransom
Eh,
payment of
Siempre es más
ransomware.
fácil atacar
Who
ransomware
hasn't suffered a ransomware attack?
países, ¿no? Pero tenemos
But
aliados en
we
Estados
have
Unidos
business
que
allies who have suffered
eh,
it.
¿qué implica
What is the
el pagar
implication
un rescate
of
ransomware?
paying for
Implica
ransomware?
dar dinero
It
a
implies giving money
criminales.
to criminal organizations.
Algunos lo pueden ver
Some
como
people can see this
terrorismo, es
as
una postura que está
terrorism financing.
tomando
This is
Estados Unidos
something that is
y
being
hay ciertas
addressed
empresas
in the United States, and in
que
some
lo hacen.
companies it is prohibited to pay for ransomware.
Al final del día,
At the end of the day,
hay empresas que
there are
deciden
companies that
pagar.
decide to pay.
Existe ahí
And there is a negotiation process. There are criminals that have support chats to be to have mediation, and there are experts in charge of doing the negotiations. What happens when someone pays for the ransom? Cyber criminals will tell you, and I am telling you this because I've seen it. Well, now that you paid, here you have this, your ciphering key, and if you have a problem when using it, be in touch with me, and I will delete in all the information that I stole from you. But there it is. And we are dealing with criminals, and they will not give you a certificate about the deletion of that information. At the end of the day, the company has to do a risk analysis. What is the impact on the reputation, the impact on the data of third ones, and what they need to pay to cyber criminals. So at the end of the day, me as an external consultant outside of Siemens, my stance or my posture together with the companies I have worked for, and the advice we give to ransomware victims is to first try to not pay, because then you're going to be promoting the continuation of this crime, and get ready, have a program of security copies. We have a recovery or backup, because if you ever happen to be a victim again, we want the impact to be as low as possible.
A ver, no, gracias, muchas gracias, Javi.
Thanks,
Y
Javier.
cosas muy importantes a
Something
esa
very, very important,
exportación del
and
cual
this is a recommendation.
no financian
Never
este tipo
finance,
de
do not
organizaciones
finance this type
sino
of
vivimos
organizations. And
algo
In
que
Siemens,
ignora
this is something that
en definitiva cómo se
will
aplica.
not be
Entonces,
consistent with
si
our
este
policy.
tema
So
implica
it is a sensitive
el
topic.
pago de
It is
rescatos,
sensitive to speak
porque
about
obviamente
payment of ransomware,
es necesario.
because, as Javier said,
Entonces,
this is a
efectivamente
recommendation,
nuestra
but
política
our policy,
totalmente prohíbe.
it is
Luego, pues
completely
un ejemplo,
forbidden. But
las organizaciones de
it
incluso
depends on
normativas
each one of the
como
organization, and there are
SSIG
standards in the different
aplican.
countries.
¿No?
We
Y
do not
hablando
know how it
de
applies.
países,
And speaking about other countries,
cambiando un poco de escena,
and
Javi,
based on the second question,
estamos
how do we
colaborando con
collaborate? We do
compañías
not only collaborate with
en el
those
chat de voz
companies.
donde
I
tenemos
was
filtros y
presenting where
formas
we have
para
MDAs,
poder colaborar
NDAs, so that
incluso
we can collaborate
compartir las
jointly,
mejores
so that we
prácticas.
can share
Yo
our
siempre he
best
dicho, en el
practices.
mundo de la
I have always
ciberseguridad no
said that in
existen
the world of
competidores,
cybersecurity, there
aquí
are no
es,
competitors.
somos
Here
todos
we are,
tratando
the
de
good
hacer
ones,
mejor,
trying to do
tratando de
good things,
proteger
trying to
como
protect.
todo
As
el
such,
ambiente operativo
the
de
IT operational ambient, we want to
todos
protect everyone,
nosotros podemos
and
hacer de
only
mejor manera.
all of us
Por
will
eso
be
es
able
que
to do it
nosotros
in
con
the
estas
best possible
compañías, incluso
way.
si
And
ustedes
this is
pudieran
why
acompañarme,
we work with
podrían
all these
contribuir a
companies.
esto como
And
como
in
un
quotes, it
competidor
can be seen
de
as a
verdad.
market
Pero al final
competitor.
estamos siempre
But at the end of
compartiendo
the day, we are
muchas
sharing our
mejores
best
praxis,
experiences, our best
mejores
practices,
formas que
our best
tenemos
way to get
para que
protected,
nuestros clientes, para que nuestros proyectos
so that our
salgan
customers and
lo
our
más pronto
projects
posible y todas
become
estas personas
as,
entiendan
as
cómo es que se están ciberprotegiendo todos estos
so
ambientes.
that people can understand how
Actualmente,
this is
en los
being
distintos países hacemos
protected.
alianzas estratégicas con principales
We
compañías
also
de
do
ciberseguridad
strategies
de ciberseguridad,
with companies
porque
doing
no todas las
cybersecurity.
tecnologías siempre
Colors
nos
do
llegan
not
como a
matter
proteger y estamos
if
hablando con ellos y estamos
we,
haciendo
as long as we
todos estos
protect,
ejercicios. Entonces,
and as long as we make
agradezco mucho
all
el
these
conocimiento y
alliances.
muchos
So there are many processes of Siemens
nosotros hacemos una
digitalization, and all we
gestión,
do in terms of
buscamos la mejor solución para poder
automation,
proteger haciendo esas alianzas con muchas otras
we do the
compañías.
best possible alliances. Thanks so much. Thanks to both of you. Let's give them a round of applause. Thanks for your presentation. Thanks for sharing your time with us. Thanks, Javier, for being here in person. And we salute you. And we are going to keep in